Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about my first ever children's book and sort of how it came to be. Whilst actually working on it, the footage that you're seeing on screen right now is me working on the cover of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the book itself. So it's about a unicorn, which initially it wasn't, but I'm really happy that it ended up being about a unicorn because as a kid I really loved unicorns. So it's been sort of the book that I would have wanted as a child. And I always really liked the sort of medieval unicorns. So my unicorns are based on medieval unicorns. It's not a horse with a horn, but I noticed in a lot of older illustrations that they seem to be more deer-like or even goat-like. So I built my unicorn lore around that, and there is also a little fox griffin in it, because I wanted there to be, since it's going to release in Sweden, I wanted there to be sort of like a foresty world. So I wanted the creatures in it to sort of feel like they belong here. So rather than doing like a classic eagle, eagle lion or eagle cougar griffin, I wanted it to be an animal that exists here. And I like foxes and I like crows, so like he looks mostly like a fox, but he's based on a magpie and a fox. So to sort of set the scene, I just come back home from Vancouver. This was during the pandemic, which, you know, sucked for everybody, and it sort of sucked for me to be abroad. So I came back home to Sweden, and I didn't really have a place on my own at the time. I was living at my mom's house for a little bit while I was like kind of trying to figure out what I was gonna like do now that I was home again. Because I was formerly employed in the animation industry in Vancouver, which is a very broad space, but not quite as broad in Sweden. And so I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I knew of like one animation studio that did movies, and I applied there. And then I just threw my portfolio at every single publishing company I could find, hoping that I could like land some illustration gigs instead. And they pretty much mostly rejected me. As is it's pretty common to be dealing with a lot of rejection in this industry, sadly, but it's the truth. We're professional. It's fine. But yeah, I got a lot of responses, like, if any, I got a lot of responses that were like, yeah, we're not really looking for anybody right now, but we'll keep you around. But then I got one response from one publisher saying that they really liked my art and they were interested in working with me, but they didn't really have a story for me to illustrate, which I thought would be like another one of those, yeah, sorry, we've got nothing right now. We'll keep you around though. But then the email continued, do you have a story of your own? And I was like losing it a little bit, because since high school I've been wanting to create my own children's books and just, you know, like both do the writing and the illustrating, and I thought it would be one of these like far off dreams that I might get to do eventually, but to have it like offered here was like a little bit insane to me, because I hadn't really proven that I could write, or I hadn't even like sent in a manuscript, which you will usually have to do if you're going to apply as an author. So yeah, it was like a little bit of a crazy opportunity and one that I could not pass down. So I said sure. And then pretty much off the top of my head, wrote down a couple of ideas that I had for children's books. One involving a centaur sort of getting lost in this fantasy world or fairy tale land. And the publisher was like, we like that, make it a unicorn. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. That's even better for me because that's way easier to draw anyway. So they scheduled a video interview with me, and they wanted me to like explain the synopsis a little bit more. And through the whole thing, I just like felt so much like a fraud. And I sort of had a vague idea that I just tried to explain best I could and tried to not come across as if I didn't know what I was doing, because I truly didn't know what I was doing. And I gave them this like really vague pitch, just so sure that they would, you know, just take this opportunity away from me at any moment, because they'd figure out that I wasn't cut out for it or something. But, you know, I gave it my best shot and faked some confidence, and they told me that they were interested. And I was really excited and also terrified and pretty stressed, because at the same time, I had gotten a job offer at this studio that I applied for that I mentioned earlier, and I had to move halfway across the country, and I'd like just started, and I was staying at my best friend's place for a little bit before I was able to like move into my own apartment. So it was like a really chaotic time to be given like a tight deadline for a manuscript to like also complete. So it was a little bit chaotic for me, but I wrote it in what felt like a blur, pretty much like doubting myself the whole time, and thinking, wow, like this is really bad. For like each page that I completed of like, you know, like crappy first draft, I went back, edited it, and then like by the very end of like the deadline that I got, I read it through, thought, well, gave it my best shot, and then I sent it in like really sure that they were gonna pass it down. And then they answered and told me that they were interested in making my book, and I got my contract. And I got a year to make it. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I still think that it's like really insane. One thing I knew going into this project was that I would not have a lot of time working on it, sadly, because I had also landed a studio job that I would have to commute for. And that would usually eat up about 11 hours or more of my day. So if I came home and I didn't have any chores, I might have like 4 hours to work on it per day, maybe. And this was like the golden scenario, because I would usually like have something to do, or I was just kind of tired, you know? So I decided to go for a sort of simplistic style. And also because this was the first project of this scale that I had done before. I haven't done any children's book before this. I've done illustrations that are children's book-esque, but or like even sequential, but I haven't done illustrations that would have to cover 24 pages of a book. So I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to do something that I felt like I could manage, and that felt even more simple than I needed it, because I knew it was probably going to be harder. And what do you know? It was probably, or it was actually harder than I thought it would be. So thankfully, yeah, I'm very glad I did that. So I decided to go for a simplistic style, no line art, simple shadow or simple shading, simple lighting, simple background, simple character designs, and I thought I would be able to complete it in 4 months. I had 12 months to do it. I thought I would be able to complete it in 4 months. I'm here, near the deadline, and as of recording, I am still not finished. So, some lessons that I learned from it and wanted to share both sort of just for me to reflect on a little bit as a little bit of a retrospect for this project as it's sort of concluding, but also if you're watching this, then perhaps you too want to create some sort of a children's book or something like it. So my first lesson is put yourself out there and go for the opportunities that you think are out of your reach. Because if you're lucky, they're not. And you're not really the best judge of your own abilities at all times. Sometimes the gatekeeper is you. And to me, that's very much the case. Because I really didn't think I could do this. I thought maybe if I'm really, really lucky, I could illustrate somebody else's book, but I never thought I could like actually create my own. My second lesson is keep it simple, stupid. Because even something simple is harder than you think. I didn't have that much time for it, as I said, and I knew that, so I simplified my style, and I still thought that it would be really easy to do. It was not. It was not easy. Even though I had like a simple style, it was still pretty hard. And that's my advice to you, is examine the amount of time you'll be able to put on something, and then also, have you done this sort of thing before? Even if you have done something like it, have you done it in this scale before? Like, do you know exactly how long it will take you? Now I know exactly how long a project like this will take me. But I'm really glad that I chose a simplistic style because I really needed it. And I still underestimated how long it would take and how hard it would be. So keep your project simple because it's going to take longer than you think it will take. And the third lesson, which sort of goes hand in hand with the second lesson, is just like move on from things. It does not have to be perfect. I guess a better way of saying it is finished, not perfect. There are definitely pages in this book that I'm not as proud of and that I don't love. But if you can't do the whole like finished, not perfect philosophy, then maybe I'll fix it later is a better philosophy for you. That's the one that I applied to myself. I'd, like work an illustration until it was done, but not past done, like you can always poke at some things. Like I left some mistakes in there, even though like, it can be done, but still have mistakes. That's sort of where I would usually leave an illustration and then go, I've spent a lot of time on this. I sort of have to move on now. There are things I want to fix. Let's fix it when I'm done with the rest of them, so I know I'll have time for everything before I go back and fix things, before adjusting things that ultimately don't really matter. And I was very positive that I'd be able to do that. I'm not as positive anymore. I think there will still be those like mistakes they're gonna bug me forever, but that's fine. Finished, not perfect. If it's your first thing, then let it be your first thing. If it's your second thing, then let it be your second thing, and so forth, because all these little mistakes don't matter. You could work on something forever, and it still won't be perfect. Just move on, let it go. It's fine. And I think that's something that's really important for a project like this, when it's something of a dream come true and you want it to be perfect because it is something of a dream come true. And you want it to be your magnum opus, and you don't want it to be flawed or have mistakes because it means that much to you. And you want it to be something that you can look back on with so much pride, but it will have mistakes in it. And it has to have mistakes in it because it's your first thing. If it is your first thing, like even if it's your 100th thing, there has to be mistakes in it. That's just how it is. And it's okay. That's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed my rumbles, and I can't wait to share the actual physical book with you. Have a lovely rest of your day, and please take care.